All right. Well, um, first question would be, why have you decided to run?
Sure. My name's Tim Cywinski. I have a wealth of political experience, policy experience, and community organizing experience, which means my whole record, my whole career has been centered around the people who have the least among us and the people just
Yeah,
above them. And so you can't do what I do and think that our politics works for everyday people. It does not, and I cannot be convinced otherwise. The whole thing about working with the people that I work with is that when there are bad decisions made from the top, the people at the bottom feel the consequences first. And I think we
yeah,
can fix things for all of us, as long as we have policy that's built from the ground up as opposed to the top down. So that's my
yeah.
perspective, that's my experience, and those are the people I want to represent.
All right, great. What are the main issues you want to prioritize?
So I call myself a reformist Democrat. It's not a real party, it's a brand. It's what I believe in.
Yeah,
With the same thing that I was just talking about before, I think politics in America is fundamentally broken because of the politicians that we have, because of the fiscal policy that we have,
yeah,
because of the influence that we have. So my main platform is something I call the fair shot agenda, unlocking the potential of politics in order to represent us and not just the people who can write the biggest checks. So
yeah,
that looks like making sure that we can fight big money in politics. It means that there should be mandatory ethics. Integrity should not be up to choice. There's no reason these people to enrich themselves while they serve in a public service office.
yeah,
They can't just dodge constituents, not have mandatory town halls. They can't just have corporate lobby meetings day in, day out, and not have to provide a public transcript of exactly how that meeting went down because we deserve to know who's influencing them. And then the
yeah,
third thing is I want to lower taxes on the majority of Americans, and I want to make sure that we pay for it by cutting corporate loopholes and making sure that the people who have the most outrageous amount of money in this country have to pay a little bit more, just a little bit more, because everyone is dealing with an affordability crisis. This is a way for both our government to provide some immediate relief and also help the public weed out who is representing us and who is representing the people who can afford to take a little bit of a pay cut.
yeah. All right, great. Well, tell me a little more about your economic policies.
So the tax policy in particular, I think that our tax
Yeah,
code is fundamentally flawed from the foundation. When we changed it in the 80s under Ronald Reagan administration,
yeah,
we went from a tax code that revolves around the middle class and working people to a tax code that revolves around shareholders alone. And I know that because if you are somebody who works for your money, if you are on income, then the tax code, which is 7,000 pages long, only 183 pages is relevant to you. The rest are corporate
yeah,
loopholes, those things. So what I think is that we need to be able to fully fund public benefits. We need to be able to fully fund our education. We need to be able to fully fund healthcare because it's outrageous in the richest country in the
yeah,
world that people can go broke for being sick, or they can work two full-time jobs and still not afford groceries and rent at the same time. That's unacceptable.
yeah,
I think that starts with setting this behavior of let's rewrite the tax code from the foundation with my philosophy. And my philosophy is you tax corporate greed and greedy billionaires more, and you tax hardworking people less. Work should not be taxed as much as greed, but right now our tax system is fundamentally upside down. So we start there with an economic policy that makes sure that we can bolster our public benefits, things that helped create the middle class throughout the decades. But when we pay for it by making sure that the people with the most have to put in a little bit more, and the people with the least, they get some a little bit of relief.
yeah,
On top of that, economic policy is, I think, if we're not strengthening our small businesses, then we are not strengthening our entire economy. Our economy is going to get worse and concentrated only to the few instead of work
yeah,
for everyday people. So I have something I call the Main Street Fund. This is part of my Fair Shot agenda, where it is a stimulus package of forgivable loans that will where only small businesses can apply. And I'm not talking about, the some subsidiaries of a big corporation, which they can,
yeah,
have a different name, but on paper they're connected to some big
yeah,
corporation. I'm talking about your mom and pop businesses. I'm talking about our restaurant industry. I'm talking about, the service industry. That those places need a little bit of a leg up. And if you do that, then you allow an economy where small business can compete with big business, and that will lower prices and that will increase quality. This is fundamentally something that we know about our economics is that competition is good. Competition that's fair is good. But right now,
Yeah.
the people with the most write the rules that set the rules of our economy, and they make sure that they strategically disadvantage anyone who can't have $1 billion+ portfolio. That's part of it. I think when it comes to housing, everybody wants to build more, but it doesn't matter if we build more if we're only building $1 million+ homes. I want to make sure we can
Yeah.
lower down prices. Something we need to talk about more is that Wall Street and giant corporations and equity firms, they're buying up all our housing and they aren't renting up those single family
Yeah.
homes. And so what that does is it artificially deflates the supply and artificially increases the demand. And when you have a system like that, then you could artificially raise prices and there's nothing anybody can do about it. It'd be great if we could ban that practice. I just don't think people who already get a lot of money from the same people from the people who are benefiting from it are going to ban it outright. But I do think, again, this goes back to me rewriting the tax code. We can tax the hell out of that so that these
Yeah.
investment firms that are owing up all our housing, they hate to have a tax penalty. They'll want to sell it at a lower cost, and that'll allow the middle class to come back in. And once the middle class comes back in, then renting across the board will be able to stabilize and get more affordable, actually lower prices. Not just some promise about how we're going to build more and it doesn't actually
Yeah.
lower prices. That's the problem. Yes, we need to build more housing, but we also need to unlock the housing we already have.
All right. Um, well, what are your policies on healthcare and education?
Absolutely. Both should be fully funded. Both should be affordable. Both should not depend on how much money you have or where you live. So when it comes
Yeah.
to education, we have let go of the promise in America that says if you work hard, then you can follow your dreams and you can be successful. And maybe you can't be the richest person, but success is not always about wealth to people, but being able to have upward mobility is. That starts with education. As long as we're abandoning our students and our teachers who are taking care of them, then we have no access to the American dream. This is a hard line for me. I am so sick of education being on the chopping room floor anytime we reach an economic downturn, while at the same time, we give tax breaks and bailouts to the people who have the most.
Yeah.
So I want to raise teacher pay. I want to make sure that schools' infrastructure is like the level of a palace, no matter where you live. I want to restructure the way that we fund our schooling because right now it largely depends on how much money you have and how much money your community has. I think the federal government does have an obligation to put in some fair share, but at the same time, we need to stop being so so oversight heavy on what teachers teach. We need to unlock the potential of teachers who are there to actually guide and influence our children's ability to think for themselves and to innovate.
Yeah.
We empower administrators too much and we disempower teachers too much. Let's flip the script. So that's on education. And on my website, you'll see a even more detailed plan because the gaps in education don't happen for people who look like me very often. But we need to be talking a lot more about how we're taking care
Yeah.
of our children with disabilities. We need to be talking a lot more about our children who are non-white. And the only way we can actually have that conversation is if we include teachers. And we need to make sure that teachers aren't sacrificing as much as they have to sacrifice now and have to sacrifice even more in the future while they're doing
Yeah.
the best that they can with our students. I'm tired of us abandoning both those groups. We need to use the full force of our ability to unlock how we can support those groups. Yeah, you're just tapping a little bit. No, 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 it's okay. Sorry, there was somebody who came into my office. It's like
No problem.
healthcare, healthcare, right? Richest country in the world, healthcare costs are the number one cause for bankruptcy. Somebody means to square that for me. You can't.
Yeah.
Not really. And if you listen to the industry, all they tell you is a bunch of bullshit about how it's about innovation and renovation, all this stuff, while simultaneously paying their CEOs 100 to 200 to 1,000 times more than the average worker does. Those things can't coexist at the same time, but also we
Yeah.
can fully fund healthcare by making sure we close corporate loopholes and we make sure that people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos who take advantage of our tax code and then don't put anything back, those people pay their fair share. But if we make a healthcare system that's different than the one we have, it has to be comprehensive. Everybody likes to say Medicare for all, and I get that. And that's
Yeah.
that's an easy talking point. The thing about Medicare though is it doesn't necessarily cover vision or hearing or dental unless it's an emergency case. I think that's ridiculous. Healthcare should be care. Why do we segment these things out
Yeah.
over and over and over again? So my plan is called One Care, full stop. The way that we implement that is a Medicare for all style single payer healthcare system. That is where we go to. That's the goal. That's where we go into. But from the immediate, because healthcare costs are already outrageous and they're about to get worse because we passed the big, beautiful bill. In fact, in
Yeah.
my own district, 25,000 people are going to lose health insurance in the next year.
That's
25,000.
awful.
Exactly. So, how do we provide while we transition into a single payer healthcare system? I think we need a public option, which is, government healthcare system as a choice. And if you lose your job, you can go into it. If you don't want, as a small business owner, to pay for premiums, you can tell your employees to go into it. What that does is, again, comes back to my small business thing. You can lower prices by making sure that there's competition. Because right now we have a fully profit motivated healthcare system, which means people will profit off of your pain and they will find a way to not pay for the care that they owe you if they can do it.
Yeah.
This has happened in my own family. My brother was born without the right valve of his heart. The health insurance company said, we're not going to pay for it because it's what they call a pre-existing condition. What I hear when I hear that
Yeah.
is, he's a baby. It's his fault for being born. Uh, what ended up happening is my mom actually threatened to sue them. They caved. We got health insurance. But even with care, the medical debt was so much that my parents were in the position of choosing to pay the mortgage or paying their kids' medical costs. If you give the industry an excuse to deny coverage, they will take it. They need to be reined in. And for the first time, if we create a public option in the immediate, then the prices
Yeah.
will have to come down because a nonprofit agency can compete with a for-profit agency. That's what people deserve. And I'm so sick of people not trying to be bold and brash about this issue because it is the number one cause of bankruptcy. You want to make some economic relief. You want to make sure that we have an economy that works for everyday people. Healthcare is part of that.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's all about these monopolies, you know.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example, right? Like pre-existing conditions wasn't a term. The industry made up pre-existing conditions.
Yeah.
And now the industry is making a monopoly out of healthcare systems like CVS owns
Yeah.
care clinics, pharmacies, the company that's used to negotiate the price of pharmaceuticals, and their own healthcare company. And they didn't call it a monopoly, though. They called it vertical integration. All right. They just come
Yeah.
up with new terms to confuse us so that we don't look at what it actually is. And we have healthcare monopolies in this country, and that
Yeah.
not anything the government is doing except for not doing it's not what the government's doing, it's what the government's not doing. And that's preventing those things from happening.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, I would like to ask you about your stances on civil rights and constitutional rights.
Yeah. So, I mean, those things are linked to me. You need to have rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, even though we shouldn't have to. But as we've proven over the last few years, with the rise of hatred, with the rise of ignorance, with the rise
Yeah.
of people openly shouting that people who don't look like me should have less rights than people who look like me, right? The platform that I have is called the Fair Shot Agenda. The vision that I have is called Dignity for All, No Exceptions. You can't have dignity without rights. And so when it comes to the immediate dangers that are going on right now, we need to look at vulnerable groups and we need to look at voting rights. So when it
Yeah.
comes to racial justice, the forefront of those could be the criminal justice system, it could be our economic system, but what's being under attack the latest is voting rights. And that's what we saw with the Supreme Court again gutting the Voting Rights Act. There's something
Yeah.
called the John Lewis Act that is supposed to be bolster voting rights in this country. That should hopefully the Supreme Court can't do anything about it. That said, I think that's the floor. That's the floor. That's not the ceiling. We start there, but we need to keep
Yeah.
building on that. Um, when it comes to LGBTQ and queer rights, right? The Supreme
Yeah.
Court has already said, Justice Thomas has already said in his in the decision that got rid of Roe v. Wade, that's the next decision we should look at. We should take away gay marriage, the right to marry somebody you love. Um,
Yeah.
we have to make sure that we're putting in protections in that way, and we got to make sure that we have proper ethical guidelines for the Supreme Court. Because you know what else Justice Thomas did? He took a bribe. He took a bribe from a rich industry that he himself was going to be making a decision on. I think it's our obligation right now to look at where the danger is, the most urgent danger. And when it comes to rights, it's the damn Supreme Court that is causing it. I mean, yes, Donald Trump and the decisions of the administration that they're making
Yeah,
yes, they're doing it, but the Supreme Court's supposed to be the referee. They're supposed to be the safety net. Right now, they're not doing that. So we need whether it's I know some people want to pack the Supreme Court. I'm not opposed to that. I want to impeach the two Supreme Court justices that did take bribes, though. Let's make sure that they see that
yeah,
there's consequences, that the people who are supposed to be in charge of justice have consequences that are justified. So yeah, that's that aspect. And then yeah, just protecting vulnerable people. And again, I think I'm the only candidate in this race who has disability rights on his website. I think that's a really important and overlooked issue. We
yeah,
passed the American with Disabilities Act and we said, all right, pat ourselves on the back, but that's it. And people look at that as a checkbox, not as a promise. We need to be bolstering support systems for people with disabilities. And if we do that, it's not just the right thing to do, but it also will create a lot of jobs in infrastructure. It will create a lot more openings for people who want to work who can't. And it will also protect people who just can't work, and that's okay too. Because to me, patriotism is not just about believing in my country. It's believing what my country is capable of to support the people who are on the
yeah,
lowest end of our society.
yeah, that's right. Well, the last question would be, what is your analysis of Trump's second term in office?
I mean, is there a grade lower than F? Here's the deal. Trump is just a reflection of what a lot of people in power are already doing. He is
Yeah,
making a lot of bad decisions because he's not capable of thinking things in a contextualized way, but the things that we can see that are consistent about him are the ways to enrich himself. He has
yeah,
increased his wealth and his family's wealth by the tune of billions. This is not dissimilar to the guy who is in the current seat I am running to take. His name is Rob Whitman, and he has increased his net worth threefold by insider trading. Right?
yeah,
He sits on the Armed Services Committee, and his biggest assets in his stock portfolio are from the Defense Contracting Committee. So he votes literally to send money to defense contractors, and then he can buy stocks in those same
yeah,
companies. As long as greed is part of our system, dignity is incapable of thriving. I really
yeah,
believe that. And I think Donald Trump, unfortunately, was right about one thing, and that's that our system is broken. But the system is broken a lot because it's so intertwined with greed. And he has not proven that he's trying to fix the system. He's trying to exploit it for his own gain. And meanwhile, the rest of us suffer. The rest of us suffer, whether it's people who were reliant on food assistance who are about to lose it. I think I saw
yeah,
something yesterday. It's that 700,000 children should have access to food assistance, and now they don't because he passed a bill that gave the wealthiest among us a tax break. Um,
yeah,
he has disregarded the safety and security of our armed service members, with his war in Iran, which again,
yeah,
there was no plan, there was no exit strategy, there was no overarching grand idea of what we were supposed to do, and he just sent them off like that. He just sent them off like that. And guess who got rich off that? A whole bunch of Congress people who knew that that was happening, and they invested stocks, including the one that I'm running against. And then, of course, it's just his general demeanor of not wanting to answer questions. Look, if you are in the position, it's the highest position in all the land, and if you're the leader of the freed world, yes, you're going to get asked hard questions, but that's what you signed up
yeah,
for. You don't get to complain. You don't get to complain
yeah,
those in power don't get to complain when the powerless question them. That's my standard. So, and I could go on and on and on about the rest of his policies, but
yeah,
we're supposed to look up. And I'm just really tired of looking up and being disappointed. We need to change the narrative. We need to change what our level of what we come to expect from our
yeah,
politicians is. And that's what I'm running. That's what I'm trying to do. It's why I don't take corporate money. That's why I don't take special interest money like from groups like APAC. And it's also why I've spent
yeah,
most of my campaign talking to real people instead of calling donors. The only donors that I call are the people who've already given me money, no matter how much they gave me. And I ask them what they think I should be fighting for. I never ask them for more money. And that's not noble. I think that's just the standard we should all come to expect.
yeah.